You may have heard that Russian NHL players are having difficulty leaving Russia to come over for development camps this offseason. This started with Flyers goalie prospect Ivan Fedotov, who was supposedly sent to a Russian naval base in retaliation from his KHL club, CSKA Moscow, for signing his entry level deal with the Flyers. Since then, additional rumors have been circulating about Russian players in general, most notably Wild superstar Kirill Kaprizov. Kaprizov has supposedly been denied entry into the United States on two separate occasions for reasons that are yet unknown. This uncertainty with Russian players is nothing new. After all, it wasn't that long ago when Russian and Soviet players were banned from coming to North America entirely. Yet tensions with Russia, at least in regards to hockey players, have been mostly calm for quite some time. Only the Russian invasion of Ukraine would change that. We saw this have an impact at the 2022 NHL draft. Although there weren't that many high profile Russian players in the 2022 draft class, some of the very best went far later in the draft than they likely would have if international relations were status quo. Of these, I want to highlight three players. The first two are Gleb Trikazov and Vladimir Grudinin. Of course, there is an argument that could be made based purely on how these two kids play hockey that they were drafted more or less where they should have been. With Gleb Trikazov, I can almost see this argument being decent. Personally, though, I did have him ranked inside my top 10. Generally, he was ranked in the mid to late first round. Naturally, he went 60th overall to the Carolina Hurricanes. Quite frankly, this is too low for Trikazov based purely on how he plays hockey. There's no doubt in my mind that the current situation with Russian players led to Trikazov falling further than he otherwise would have. That being said, Trikazov pales in comparison to fellow Hurricanes draft pick Vladimir Grudinin, whom the Canes managed to select at 156th overall. I will admit that I was higher on Grudinin than anyone else that I saw, having him ranked 11th overall. However, most people still had him ranked at least in the top 50, if not the mid to late first round. Perhaps hockey factors such as the fact that he is an undersized defenseman played into him falling to 156. However, I think it is no coincidence that both these players were drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes. Clearly, they are not as bothered by the uneasy relations with Russia as other teams are. The third player I want to mention here is Pavel Mintyukov. What stands out about Mintyukov is that he was drafted 10th overall by the Anaheim Ducks. What sets him apart from Trikazov and Grudinin? It isn't his skill, at least not in my opinion. I believe that Mintyukov is of a similar skill set to Grudinin. Both players I had ranked in the top half of my first round. I did like Grudinin a little bit more, but to me they are similar enough in terms of upside that I thought either could be taken early in the first round. So what led to Mintyukov going early but not Grudinin? Perhaps it is the size difference. Mintyukov is about 3 inches taller and already has NHL size. It is fairly obvious that NHL GMs prefer bigger players, so this likely played a role, but does it make up for the 146 spot discrepancy in their draft position? I don't think so. This is just a theory, but Mintyukov was already playing his junior hockey in North America as he came over previously in the CHL import draft. Grudinin, of course, spent his year bouncing between the MHL and KHL. Given everything that is happening in Russia, it does not shock me that NHL GMs would be a little more comfortable drafting a player that is already committed to playing in North America. All that being said, though, I do not believe either Gleb Trikazov or Vladimir Grudinin will be a generational talent in the NHL. But around this time next year, one NHL GM will have the opportunity to draft a generational talent in Matvei Michkov. Each GM will have to ask themselves how much current affairs really bother them, because if you have the chance to draft Michkov, you have to take it. This is very likely the best Russian pure goal scorer since Alex Ovechkin. Michkov had 30 goals in just 28 regular season games this year in the NMHL, the Russian Junior League, as a 17-year-old. Except he didn't even turn 17 until December. For nearly half the season, he was lighting up the league as a 16-year-old, playing mostly against 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. He was also a point per game in the MHL playoffs, scoring 13 goals in 17 games against tough competition, but it doesn't end there. Michkov also played 13 games in the KHL, the second best pro league in the world, where as a 16/17-year-old, he scored 2 goals and 3 assists for 5 points. This is not normal. Michkov would be a bona fide first overall pick in almost any draft in recent history. The only prospects that stand out as being clearly better than him are guys like Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, and of course, fellow 2023 draft eligible Connor Bedard. All this means that Michkov is very likely the player that will deserve to go second overall in the 2023 draft. But he will be no ordinary second overall selection. Imagine having a Connor McDavid and an Alex Ovechkin available in the same draft. The 2023 draft features what could be a fairly comparable duo in Bedard and Michkov. But will a team drafting second overall be afraid of his Russian status? Further complicating things is the fact that Michkov is signed through the 25-26 season with his KHL club, meaning the earliest he could come over would be the 26-27 season, 4 years after his draft. We have seen this work out quite well recently for the Minnesota Wild, who brought Kirill Kaprizov over as a 24-year-old who proceeded to dominate the NHL. Kaprizov, however, was only a 5th-round pick. Not much was at stake if he chose to never come over. The same cannot be said about Michkov. So will Michkov go second overall, or will teams pass on him, afraid of the risk? Of course, a lot could change between now and the 2023 draft, but I doubt Michkov's talent will ever be in question. The only question that remains is where will he get drafted?